Hi, this is Steve back at the Listening Post. Happy to be here for another year. Hope everybody's new year is off to a good start. As you get on in years, you begin to appreciate each new year's as a milestone you've reached, and you're grateful that you're still on the bus, and you become somewhat reflective and melancholy over those years past that are receding rapidly in the rearview mirror. Somebody who's not still on the bus is Jerry Garcia, and today I'm going to talk about his album from 1975, Don't Let Go. This is a live album he did with the Jerry Garcia Band at the Orpheum Theater in San Francisco. I don't know if you noticed the guitar he's playing there. It's a Travis Bean. That's a guitar with a aluminum neck that ran the length of the body, and the pickups mounted into the neck. And it was thought at the time that gave the guitar more sustain. Jerry Garcia played the Travis Bean. He played the TB-1000 with dual humbucking pickups in 1975, and then in 1976 he played the TB-500, which had 3 single-coil pickups, similar to a Fender Stratocaster. He played that from 1976 to late 1977. And then he went back to a Doug Irwin guitar. Doug Irwin was a luthier for Allenbeck guitars up in Marin County, I believe. And Jerry Garcia had started playing a Doug Irwin guitar in 1973. It was nicknamed the Wolf for a decal that was on it. And if you've seen the Grateful Dead movie, he's playing that Doug Irwin Wolf guitar throughout that film. That film was made in 1974 at Winterland in San Francisco. This album here, Don't Let Go, is interesting, not just for the guitar he was playing, but the Grateful Dead, his band, was on a hiatus at the time. They had taken a break from touring and were in the studio working on their Blues for Allah album. And Jerry Garcia was literally somebody that slept with his guitar. If he wasn't working with the Grateful Dead, he was working with Merle Sanders in 1973. He formed the New Riders of the Purple Sage, a kind of a country rock band, and played pedal steel guitar with them back in 1970. Also in 1973, he formed a bluegrass group called Old and in the Way, played banjo with them. That featured Peter Rowan, Vassar Clements, and John Kahn, his bassist. This album here features John Kahn. John Kahn started playing bass with Jerry Garcia back in 1970. There was a club in San Francisco called The Matrix that was opened by Marty Ballin of the Jefferson Airplane, and they used to have Monday night jam sessions. So Jerry Garcia and John Kahn hooked up there, and they played together throughout the rest of Garcia's career till his passing in 1995. One thing that's interesting about Jerry Garcia and the Grateful Dead is they literally recorded everything they did. All their shows are recorded, and they've got a real cottage industry right now releasing this old backlog of tapes that they've got. I've got dozens of old Grateful Dead concerts and Jerry Garcia concerts on CD now. They were formed back in 1965. They got their start as the house band for Ken Kesey's Acid Tests. Ken Kesey was the author of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and he wrote that while volunteering for experiments at the Army Medical Center up in Menlo Park, California. The CIA was experimenting with LSD. They thought maybe they could use it as a truth serum, a mind control type of a drug. And Ken Kesey volunteered for these experiments and wrote One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And he became a big LSD advocate after that. He hooked up with a guy named Stanley Owsley, who the Los Angeles Times dubbed the LSD millionaire. Ken Kesey would throw these parties called acid tests, and Stanley Owsley would provide the LSD, and the Grateful Dead got their start as the house band. Their first concert was in November 1965 at one of these acid test parties. Stanley Owsley bought them all their equipment, and he became their sound man, and he was the one that started recording all their shows. And he did a lot with the Grateful Dead. He designed their skull and crossbones logo. He did that so he would be able to stencil it on all their equipment when they were on tour, and he could easily identify which equipment was theirs by seeing this logo. He also designed their Wall of sound system that they toured the country with in 1974. They basically went bankrupt hauling this thing around. They had to double the size of their road crew in order to haul this massive sound system around that Stanley Owsley designed. And that was why they took the hiatus at the end of '74, just before this concert was recorded. This is one of the things, like I said, I've got a lot of these old albums, these old concerts, and one of the things that really sets them apart for me is the level of energy and enthusiasm they play with. And this is a good one. The band's on fire. He's got Keith Godchow and Donna Godchow of the Grateful Dead on piano and backup vocals. Keith Godchow, with the Dead, kind of hung out in the background a little bit. He wasn't, really one of the most active players. But on this CD, he's even up front and really letting it rip, which is a real treat. Besides John Conn, he's also got Ron Tutt on drums. Ron Tutt was Jerry Garcia's studio drummer of choice. He played on all his studio albums except the first one. Ron Tutt, from 1969 to 1979, was Elvis Presley's touring drummer. And when this album was recorded in '76, he would have been dividing his time between Jerry Garcia and Elvis Presley. After Elvis Presley passed away in '79, Ron Tutt hired on with Neil Diamond. And to this day, I believe, he tours with Neil Diamond and records with him. This album has got several songs on it that would have been performed by the Grateful Dead, including Sugaree and They Love Each Other. This album was recorded in May '76. It was recorded just after this studio album came out, Reflections. This was released in January 1976. And this is an interesting album because it's kind of evenly divided between the Grateful Dead performing with Jerry Garcia and Jerry Garcia's band. All the Grateful Dead tunes on this, Might As Well, They Love Each Other, Comes a Time, It Must Have Been the Roses, those are all performed by the Grateful Dead, and then the remaining tracks are formed by Jerry Garcia's band. Got this other CD here. This is about when Jerry Garcia first formed his band. He had been playing with Merle Saunders in '73, and in '75, or maybe even '74, he formed a group called the Legion of Mary with Merle Saunders. They were kind of a jazz soul kind of a outfit. And then he formed the Jerry Garcia Band in 1975, and this is the first official release by the Jerry Garcia Band. It's got Ron Tutt and John Conn on it. It's also got Nicky Hopkins on piano, which gives it some historical significance. Nicky Hopkins was a British pianist. He played with some of the groups like the Kinks, the Who, and the Rolling Stones. Then in 1969 he moved to Northern California and recorded with the Steve Miller Band, Quicksilver Messenger Service, and the Jefferson Airplane. And so it's kind of a treat that he happens to be, he was a member of Jerry Garcia's first band, the Jerry Garcia Band. Its first incarnation featured Nicky Hopkins on piano. They even do a Quicksilver Messenger song, Edward the Mad Shirt Grinder, off the Shady Grove LP. Real neat version of Let's Spend the Night Together. I suppose since Nicky Hopkins played with the Rolling Stones, Jerry decided to cover a Rolling Stones song. They turned that into a really nice extended jam. Anything else we want to talk about here? I think we've got it all. Once again, I highly recommend this album. It's got the energy, it's got the enthusiasm, and it's just got some red-hot rockin' performances. I've heard a lot of these albums by Jerry Garcia and the Grateful Dead. I also like this because I started going to their shows in '76. My first Grateful Dead show was at the Oakland Coliseum. It was a day on the green with the Who in October of '76. That's since been released as Dick's Picks 33, so that's kind of cool. And saw a bunch of shows at Winterland. That day on the green, yeah, they opened for the Who. I had caught them a few months earlier at Winterland. They played in May, I think, and got to go backstage and meet Pete Townsend and Keith Moon. My Keith Moon story is when we got introduced, somebody offered us a beer, and he just pulled out a whole six-pack and ripped off all 6 tabs and handed it to us, which was pretty funny. Then he disappeared with my buddy's sister, and we found them sitting at the drum set on stage, and he was just kind of making out with her and playing drums. Winterland was a neat place, by the way. It was kind of a medium-sized arena that a lot of these bands liked to play at because it still had the intimacy of a small club. And the Who played there. The Rolling Stones did a couple shows there in '72. And the Grateful Dead always would play 3-4 nights a week. They would like book an engagement. They'd play 3-4 nights 2-3 times a year at Winterland before it closed in '78. Well, that's all I've got. I hope you check this one out. By the way, Rhino Records has taken over the Grateful Dead's back catalog, and they've released most of these albums in limited edition, so get them while you can, because on some of these the price is really starting to skyrocket. There's a few I didn't get around to picking up, and I may never get to hear them now because they're out of my price range. But I hope you can still snag this one. This is a good one. I highly recommend Don't Let Go. Don't Let Go is a song originally recorded by Roy Hamilton in 1958, rhythm and blues hit. And Commander Cody and his Lost Planet Airmen had a hit with Don't Let Go in 1975, just before they broke up. So it was interesting to hear Jerry Garcia add it to his repertoire. Well, that's it. This is Steve back at the Listening Post. Once again, this essay will be at the Totally Guitars website, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.